In the roaring 20s, amidst the glitz and glamour of Chicago's affluent society, two brilliant minds sought a different kind of thrill, a test of intellect and a challenge to societal norms. Nathan Leopold Jr. and Richard Loeb, privileged and promising young men, embarked on a journey that would lead to a crime that shook the very foundations of society. A crime that was not just horrific in nature but an audacious attempt to outwit justice itself. Their story captivated the nation, a tale of wealth, intellect, and a dark descent into heinous crime. It's a story that challenges our understanding of morality, justice, and the lengths to which some will go to prove their superiority. Welcome to Claws and Crime Chronicles, where we dive deep into the dark and enigmatic world of true crime and mysteries. This is the tale of Leopold and Loeb, a story etched in infamy, echoing through time, forever etched in the annals of criminal history. Nathan Leopold Jr., born in Chicago in 1904 to a wealthy German Jewish family, showed exceptional abilities from an early age. He started college at the University of Michigan but later moved to the University of Chicago. Despite his stature and self-consciousness about his appearance, Leopold excelled academically, earning recognition for his ornithology work, even discovering nesting sites and behaviors of specific bird species. His intellectual pursuits extended to mastering multiple languages and garnering national acclaim as an ornithologist. Apart from his scholarly pursuits, he found joy in fishing, hunting, literature, and college football. Richard Albert Loeb, born in Chicago in 1905 to a well-to-do family, shared Leopold's exceptional intellect. He had a diverse set of interests, from history to crime stories, and accelerated through school, graduating from the University of Michigan at only 17. While not as academically focused as Leopold, Loeb enjoyed socializing, playing tennis, and diving into detective novels. Growing up in Chicago's affluent Kenwood neighborhood, both Leopold and Loeb came from prosperous families. The Loebs owned property in Charlevoix, Michigan, and a mansion near the Leopold residence. While acquainted since childhood, their bond deepened during the mid-1920s at the University of Chicago within a shared circle of friends. Fascinated by Nietzsche's concept of supermen, Leopold saw these individuals as transcendent, possessing extraordinary abilities that exempted them from societal norms. He believed he and Loeb could ascend to such status, not confined by conventional ethics. He wrote to Loeb, highlighting a superman's exemption from standard laws. Their belief in their immunity from societal norms initially led them to engage in minor crimes, stealing items from a university fraternity house and later escalating to more serious offenses like arson. Disappointed by the lack of attention, they aimed to commit a sensational perfect crime to prove their superman status and gain public recognition. Leopold and Loeb, who were 19 and 18 respectively, meticulously plotted a heinous crime. After months of planning, they targeted a younger boy for kidnapping and murder. Their intricate scheme involved demanding ransom to hide their true motives, creating a complex phone-based instruction process. Using a stolen typewriter, they crafted the final ransom note, detailing the money drop-off. They acquired a chisel, their chosen murder weapon, to execute their gruesome plan. On May 21, 1924, the two drove in Nathan's red Willys Knight to rent a car on South Michigan St. where they rented a gray Willys Knight. They rented the car under the name of Morton D. Ballard using an elaborate false identity they had created earlier. They then drove to a local restaurant where they put side curtains up on the rented car and had lunch with a friend. After lunch, they returned to Leopold's home. They dropped off Nathan's car, after transferring their gears from Nathan's red car to the rented car. These gears included a pair of rubber boots, some ether, hydrochloric acid, rope, some gags, and a chisel. They went to Jackson Park, where one of the boys taped the metal end of the chisel to use as a grip. Their weapon would be the wooden handle of the chisel, their blunt object. Loeb referred to this weapon as his toy. The duo were also armed. Leopold had a .38 and Loeb a .45. They remained in the park for 45 minutes to an hour, until the local schools let out. They had a victim in mind, Johnny Levinson. Johnny was a neighborhood boy who fit the profile Loeb and Leopold had created. The victim must have wealthy parents, he must be small so they could easily overtake him, and he must be someone they knew, so he would come willingly into the car and not make a scene. They caught sight of Levinson and began trailing him. However, they later lost him. Leopold returned to his house to retrieve his binoculars. The afternoon was wearing on and Levinson had not reappeared. However, at around 5 p.m., a boy broke away from a baseball game and began walking home. His name was Bobby Franks. Robert Bobby Franks, a 14-year-old who was Loeb's second cousin and neighbor. In Ellis Avenue, they lured Franks by offering him a ride home from school. Franks initially declined, but Loeb persuaded him to discuss a tennis racket. With Robert in their car, sitting in the front seat, the kidnappers turned east from 49th Street and Ellis Avenue and, while the exact details vary, it's generally believed that Leopold drove the car while Loeb, in the back seat, struck Franks multiple times with a chisel. Franks was wrapped in a rug and shoved onto the back floor where he died. Covering their tracks, they drove to a pre-planned site near Wolf Lake, Indiana, 25 miles away, and disposed of Frank's clothes. They concealed his body in a culvert along the Pennsylvania Railroad tracks after pouring acid on his face and genitals to hide identifying features. The smell of the acid and the water caused some discomfort, and Leopold did not push the body into the pipe far enough, and one of the boy's feet protruded. Upon returning to Chicago, they then called the Franks from another phone at another drugstore. Leopold told Mrs. Franks he was George Johnson, they had kidnapped her son, he was safe, and further ransom instructions would follow the next day. The duo then disposed of evidence, including burning their bloodied clothes and cleaning the car, before spending the evening playing cards. On May 22, 1924, after sending the ransom note, Leopold called to provide instructions for the payment. However, the plan hit a snag when a family member forgot the store's address for the next set of directions. It all collapsed when news broke about Frank's body being found. Leopold and Loeb got rid of evidence like the typewriter and a car robe they used. Meanwhile, they resumed their regular routines. Amid a rigorous police probe and rewards for tips, both Leopold and Loeb casually chatted with friends and family about the murder. Leopold even joked about confessing to a friend to get the reward money. Loeb made disparaging remarks about Franks to reporters. A pair of eyeglasses found near Frank's body, fitted with a distinct hinge, matched those bought by only 3 customers, including Leopold. Leopold suggested the glasses might have slipped out during a birdwatching trip. When formally questioned, Leopold and Loeb concocted an alibi involving picking up women in Chicago, but it fell apart when Leopold's chauffeur contradicted their story. The destroyed typewriter was later found in a lagoon. Loeb was the first to confess, blaming Leopold for planning and killing Franks. Shortly after, Leopold confessed, asserting that he drove and Loeb committed the murder. Both confessions largely aligned with the case evidence, and were made public by the state's attorney. Leopold later suggested that he urged Loeb to confess to Frank's murder, yet Loeb refused to do so, implying it would console Leopold's mother. Witnesses had varied accounts, with one claiming to have seen Loeb driving and Leopold in the back seat before the kidnapping, leaving uncertainty about the killer. Both Leopold and Loeb admitted they were driven by their thrill-seeking fantasies of being Superman and the desire for a perfect crime. Although neither looked forward to the killing, Leopold was curious about the sensation of being a murderer, but ultimately felt unchanged. The trial at Cook County Criminal Court, overseen by Judge John R. Caverly, captivated the media as a trial of the century. Clarence Darrow, renowned for opposing capital punishment, led the defense, reportedly paid $70,000. Despite the assumption of an insanity plea, Darrow opted for a guilty plea, aiming for life imprisonment instead of the death penalty. Lasting 32 days, the trial was essentially an extended sentencing hearing. The prosecution presented 100 witnesses, detailing the crime. The defense focused on psychiatric testimony, highlighting childhood neglect and, in Leopold's case, alleged sexual abuse. A controversial letter implying a homosexual relationship between Leopold and Loeb was interpreted differently by both sides. Expert witnesses highlighted the defendants' abnormalities, from gland issues to delusions leading to their actions. Darrow's impassioned 8-hour-long plea, hailed as his career's apex, argued against the inhuman methods and punishments of the justice system, emphasizing the youth and immaturity of the accused. The judge, swayed by Darrow's arguments, mainly considered precedent and the defendant's age. On September 10, 1924, both Leopold and Loeb received life imprisonment for murder and an additional 99 years for kidnapping. Shortly after, Loeb's father passed away from heart failure. Critics fault Darrow for concealing psychiatric testimony that conflicted with his aims and for rejecting free will, a fundamental principle behind criminal punishment. On January 28, 1936, Loeb was brutally attacked by fellow inmate James Day in a prison shower room and died soon after due to over 50 wounds, including a slashed throat. Day claimed self-defense, alleging Loeb's attempted sexual assault, though he remained unharmed. Despite prison officials suspecting foul play, Day was acquitted by a jury in June 1936. Leopold, in his autobiography, dismissed Day's claim of an assault by Loeb, supported by the prison chaplain, who believed Day attacked Loeb after his advances were rejected. Despite battling depression after Loeb's death, Leopold became an exemplary prisoner, making substantial contributions at Stateville Penitentiary. He restructured the prison library, revamped education programs, and volunteered at the prison hospital. In 1944, he volunteered for a malaria study, intentionally being infected and undergoing various experimental treatments, believing it was a way to make amends for his crime. Leopold wrote a book titled Life Plus 99 Years in 1958, aiming to aid his parole. The book made the New York Times bestseller list but faced criticism for possibly whitewashing his past. After multiple unsuccessful petitions, he was paroled in 1958 and worked as a medical technician at a hospital in Puerto Rico under the alias Nate, leading a quiet life. In 1961, Leopold married Gertrude Feldman in Puerto Rico. He earned a master's degree, taught, and worked in social services, urban renewal, and leprosy studies. Actively involved in studying birds in Puerto Rico, he published a checklist in 1963. Despite plans for a book about his life post-prison, it remained unfinished. He passed away from a diabetes-related heart attack in 1971 at age 66. Reflecting on the enduring legacy of Leopold and Loeb, their names echo through history as a cautionary tale of youth, privilege, and tragedy. Their crime captivated the nation, sparking debates on justice, punishment, and the depths of human capability. Despite their attempt to create the perfect crime, their lives, marked by incarceration, legal battles, and personal struggles, never escaped the shadows cast by their heinous act. Ultimately, their story serves as a stark reminder of the complexity of human nature and the far-reaching consequences of one fateful decision. Thank you for joining us on this journey through history's mysteries. Remember to subscribe, like, and share, and leave a comment as we continue to unearth the enigmatic stories that have shaped our world. Until the next episode, this is Kat from Claws and Crime Chronicles, signing off.